Now I'm really happy to invite Jason Bay, the CEO and founder at Outbound Squad, to the stage.
What I'm going to talk about today is cold calling, and I want to give you as many actionable takeaways for you and your team as possible. I'm going to teach you how to land meetings without pitching.
All right, and now I'm really happy to invite Jason Bay, the CEO and founder at Outbound Squad, to the stage. And the topic we asked Jason to cover is related to cold calling. And so, yeah, nice to meet you, Jason, and the floor is yours.
You as well. Good to see you. So I'm cool to just kind of get started here and work with the group. Yeah, cool. Oh, perfect. Well, yeah. Hey, Chelsea, what's going on? What's up, Elliot? Good to see everyone. We're going to dig in. I have 27 minutes here. So what I'm going to talk about today is cold calling. It's going to be very fast paced, and I want to give you as many actionable takeaways for you and your team as possible. What would help me understand a little bit more about the group? Can you comment if you're watching this? Are you an SDR, BDR? Did you make it maybe as an account executive? I know this is focused on sales development. Are you doing the job, or are you managing the people? So let me know in the chat. Are you an SDR, BDR? Are you a sales leader? That'll give me some context here as I work through everything with you guys. Let me know in the chat. Hey, Libby, good to see you. Let me know in the chat. That'll give me some good context for today. All right. Cool. Awesome. Thank you, everyone. Very cool. All right. Let me know in the chat as you're dropping this in. What's the average success rate of a cold call? Let me know. What do you think it is in the chat? So this would be the percentage of when I get someone live on the phone, I connect with them, the percentage of people that I would convert into a meeting. Let me know in the chat. What do you think it is? What's the average success rate of a cold call? What's up, Valentina? Hey, Nikhil, Abigail, Rolando. Good to see you. Hey, Susan, Lars. The reply crew says about 2%. Let me know in the chat. What do you think the average success rate of a cold call is? Juan says 1%. We got 2%. Chelsea says somewhere between 6 and 8. 1.5. I know there's probably a little bit of a delay for those of you guys watching it live, so I'll just give it a couple seconds. Cool. Loving the engagement, everyone. So here's what to know. There's a couple things. I think that there's the average, and then we'll talk about what's possible. So according to Gong, right up here, the average chance of a positive outcome from a cold call, so securing a next step, not even securing a meeting, just a next step of some sort, is 1.48%. According to Allego, and also reps that I've personally worked with and coached, and having done this a lot myself, we see success rates somewhere around 30%. So you have this 1.48% and 30%. What I'm going to talk to you today is like the gap between those two things. So how can we be someone that has to talk with several dozen people to get a meeting versus someone that can get them out of every 3 or so? Okay. A big part of this has to do with credibility. Okay. LinkedIn, they did a 2020 state of sales, and they pulled a bunch of buyers, about 10,000 buyers and sellers. And there seems to be a discrepancy in what you see here, right? 65% of sellers say that they always put the buyer first, but only 23% of buyers agree. And then what you see there on the right, 68% of buyers do not describe sales, as a trustworthy profession. So I think the thing to note here is that we are coming from a place of distrust. So when a prospect, I don't have my phone in front of me, but when a prospect decides to pick up the phone, I think we could all agree here that they did not pick it up on purpose thinking it was a cold call because they were so eager to hear what you had to say. They probably thought that you were someone else. And we're coming from a place of distrust. There's inherent distrust towards people that reach out, do cold outreach, that sort of stuff. Okay. So what I want to focus on today is I'm going to teach you how to land meetings without pitching. And I really want this to be the focal point, the principle, the glue behind everything I'm going to show you. Don't prospect to make a sale, prospect to start a conversation. All right. Prospecting is about starting conversations. When we talk about our product, our service, any of that kind of stuff, we're starting to get into sales mode. We don't want to be into sales mode. Okay. So before I get in here, this is what we're going to cover. One, I want to teach you how to confidently nail your cold call intro. And then two, how to start compelling conversations. All right, let's get in. So we've got about 20 minutes. I want to jam pack this with as much as takeaways as I can for you. All right, so what I want to do first is we're going to approach the cold call and we're going to chunk it into 3 parts. Okay, we have our intro, and I have a worksheet, by the way, that I'm going to share with you guys after this. And that worksheet is going to have all of this, like the diagram I'm about to walk you through, plus some scripts and templates, and I'll show it to you here a little bit later. So the first part of the call, what we want to do is focus on making an entrance. Okay, so this is like your first 30 to 60 seconds. Okay, here, there we go. First 30 to 60 seconds. Okay, help me out in the chat here. What do you think is going through the prospect's head when they decide to pick up a call from a number that they don't know? Let me know in the chat. What do you think is going through a prospect's head when they decide to pick up a call and it's from a number that they don't recognize? Yeah. Ayla, hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. Who is this? Yeah, what does this person want? How quickly can I get them off the phone? Juan says. Yeah, they're probably expecting it to be someone else, right? So I want to give you kind of Lego style here. These are building blocks. These are things that we want to incorporate in the first part of our call. Loving the engagement, everyone, by the way. Keep it coming in the chat. There's a couple things that we want to do, and we don't necessarily have to do them in this order, okay? The first thing I want to do is leverage what's called a permission-based opener, PBO for short. We're going to gain permission. We're going to add some sort of relevance to show the prospect that I called you on purpose. What I'm about to share with you is relevant to something in your world. And then what we're not going to do at this point is we are not going to pitch. So in the first 30 to 60 seconds, we're not talking much about what our product or service does. We're not talking about who we help. And we're not asking for a meeting. Okay, we're not going to pitch. We're going to do, I sometimes refer to it as a reverse pitch or a priority drop. Okay. And again, we don't have to do them necessarily in this order. Okay. So first thing I want to do, real simple, is I'm going to introduce myself. I'm going to gain permission. And again, I have this scripted out and I'll share with you guys here in a second. What that's going to sound like is something like this. Hey, Emin, it's Jason with Outbound Squad. I know I probably caught you in the middle of something. You got a minute for me to tell you why I'm calling? And you can let me know if you want to keep chatting. So I'm actually going to give the prospect a choice and allow them to opt in to the call. There's a ton of different variations of what I just said. But if we start really basic, I want to gain permission. That permission-based opener, again, sounds something like this. Hey, Elliot, Jason with Outbound Squad. I know you weren't expecting my call. Do you mind if I take a minute to tell you the reason for my call? You can let me know if you want to keep chatting. Any variation of that is totally appropriate. So I'm going to acknowledge what I think is going on in their head, right? You're interrupting me. You caught me in the middle of something. I'm going to make a specific ask for time, and then I'm going to ask for permission. Now, what you might be thinking at this point is, well, hey, if I give the prospect an opportunity to say yes or no, couldn't they say no? Well, yeah, they could say no, actually. That's a possibility, okay? If you do this right and you pull it off 8 or 9 times out of 10, you should get a yes or a hey, go ahead. Yeah, you got me. All that kind of stuff, okay? Libby, if you want to save your question for later, I can, if we have time for it, I can circle back to it. Okay, so permission-based opener. And then I want to add something of relevance, and we'll give you an example of what that might sound like. So let's say that I work with a customer that sells, I'll just write it down here. A customer experience solution, right? And they sell into Fortune 1000 companies. Okay. So one of their prospects might be a VP of customer support, let's say. So imagine someone that runs a contact center, got a bunch of reps, all that kind of stuff. So the things that might be going on that company that are relevant to the reason that they're reaching out is any signs of this company trying to reduce the cost to serve their customers. So one thing that's really important, this is both B2B and with consumer type sales. Think about any large department store. Think Nordstrom, let's say, for example. I don't know what's big in Europe, but insert big store. One of the things that these contact centers look at is when someone opens up a chat on the website or calls in, they're looking at the total amount of customers that exist in their world, and they look at the total cost of their customer support teams, and they assign a cost to serve. So that cost to serve is literally down to the dollar. We say, hey, every customer costs us $200 per interaction that we have with them to help them, for example, okay? So one of the relevant things that we might find is any indication that they're trying to get their customers to self-serve. Some companies are public and openly talk about that. Sometimes it's a person's LinkedIn profile, whatever it might be. So that relevance piece, that's going to be the first thing that comes out of my mouth. So I'm going to do permission-based opener. Hey, Antonio, it's Jason with XYZ company. I know I probably caught you in the middle of something. You got a minute for me to share the reason for my call? And you can let me know if we keep chatting. Let's say that Antonio's a nice guy and he says, yeah, sure, go ahead. What's up? That relevance statement. I was reaching out because I noticed in your 2022 Q3 quarterly report that reducing cost to serve by about 15% was a really big focus. Right? I'm going to immediately open up with something that is relevant to their world. It could be something that you find off a LinkedIn profile too. Right? Hey, I was reaching out because I noticed a big focus of yours at XYZ company has been reducing the cost to serve your customers in the support department. Okay, so I'm going to open up with relevance. The other thing that's kind of cool is I can flip-flop these too. Okay, so if you find yourself getting hung up on a lot or encountering a lot of resistance early in the call, so when I say early, anything in that first 30 to 60 seconds, if you're getting a lot of resistance, a lot of objections, not interested, people not being friendly, that sort of stuff, I can open up with the relevance. So let's say I'm calling Libby. Libby picks up. Hi, I was giving you a call because of the initiatives that you mentioned in your last quarterly earnings report around reducing cost to serve. Oh, by the way, this is Jason with XYZ company. You got a minute for me to tell you the reason for my call? So I can flip-flop those too. I can start with the relevant piece. So the biggest thing that I want to do is establish right away that I'm calling you on purpose and I'm calling about something that I think is important to you based on what I've seen. If any questions pop up, you guys feel free to drop them into the comments as well. So the next thing that I want to do is what's called a priority drop. Okay. So I've done my permission-based opener. I've added relevance. I said, I'm calling because of XYZ thing. The priority drop, what I want to leverage is something called customer voice. What customer voice is going to help me do is I'm going to speak through the lens of the people that I help serve. Okay, and I'll give you an example with me, my VP of sales, Ethan Parker, shout out Ethan, and I sell to VPs of sales. We hear a couple really big focuses right now, okay? So if I was talking to a VP of sales, it might sound something like this. Hey, Brian, the reason I was reaching out to you is I noticed you guys are doing a ton of hiring on the SDR side and the AE side right now. And usually when I talk to VPs of sales in this situation, they're running into one of two things. One is they're trying to create more blended pipeline. So they're looking at their account executives and figuring out how can we rely less on inbound and SDRs and help them self-source more of their opportunities. And the other thing I hear right now is adjusting messaging for the current economic times. So with your buyers responding to the economy in specific ways, how are we adjusting both sales and outbound messaging to make sure that we're not extending sales cycles longer than they should be? Do either of those two happen to be something you're focused on right now, or is it something else entirely altogether? All right. So I want to pause there. So what I did is I gained permission. I dropped something relevant to the prospect. So that's my trigger, my personalization, whatever it might be. And then I'm going to do a priority drop. So I'm going to talk about what people like the prospect tend to be focused on. Okay. I would love some help from you guys in the chat. What is one big priority, like a goal, a 2022 or 2023 initiative that your prospects have? Be as detailed as you can. Drop it into the chat for me. What I mentioned was creating blended pipeline. Right? Helping account executives self-source more of their own deals so they don't rely so much on inbound and the SDRs. Let me know in the chat so I can kind of customize this for you guys a bit. What's something that's relevant or a priority for your prospects? Drop one of them into the chat. What's a goal? What's something relevant? You don't got to overthink this piece too much. What's a big outcome or goal or initiative that your prospects have? Yeah, so Danielle, I don't know what you sell, but that might be one of the things that we talk about. Hey, and speaking with sales development leaders, one thing we hear right now is, with spam, guidelines being really tough. How do we keep our calls out of spam with the new FCC cold calling guidelines? Yeah, Rolando, a big focus we hear is around reducing medical renewal costs and XYZ. I might add a little bit more detail around that. There we go, Brandon. Shipment visibility. Yeah, so reply, they mentioned book more meetings by an SDR team. Something that I hear kind of related to that is, hey, in speaking with sales development teams, they're being asked to make up for slow inbound right now with the economic conditions and doubling down on outbound. So they're having to double or triple the outcomes from their SDR team. Cool. Yeah, you guys are totally getting this. Okay. So that priority drop, I'm basically going to say, hey, multiple choice, really specific. Are you focused on one or two, A or B? And what that's going to help me do with this middle part of the call is filter the conversation. Okay. When I can filter the conversation, what that allows me to do is kind of sync up with the prospect. Allows me to sync up. Let me explain what I mean by that. So what's really tough, I don't know if anyone here goes to the gym. I want you to imagine like running on a treadmill like this, right? I'm running like this. What you want to do when you call a prospect, they're already on the treadmill. I don't want to just sit here and talk to them while they're on the treadmill. I want to hop on the treadmill next to them and catch up to them. Okay. So what I need to do when I sync up is I need to quickly add context and relevance to the conversation so that the possibility of stuff that we could talk about on a cold call is like this. And when they pick up, I'm going to do a priority drop so I can kind of like segment a specific path to take the conversation down and put some bumper guards up. It's going to take the amount of things that we could talk about out here, and it's going to be extremely focused. And in 4 to 6 minutes, if I can have an extremely dialed in conversation around something they care about, the odds of getting a meeting go up exponentially. Okay. So this whole sync up piece, what we want to do is we want to have some questions. I call this question stacking. All right. We want to have some pre-prepared questions for each of those priorities. Okay. And what we want to do here is I'm going to explain the difference here. What's super important when we start to ask questions in a cold call is that we do what's called supporting instead of shifting. So what does that mean? So this is something that I learned. There's a book that's really good. It was assigned homework from my wife, Sarah. It's called You're Not Listening by Kate Murphy. And one of the things that she talked about in that book is that a lot of people tend to just listen. And when they listen to people, they listen for things that they relate to. So I'll give you an example of that. If I asked you, hey, what are you up to this? I guess it's Tuesday. What'd you do last weekend? And you said, oh, I just, I bought a guitar, I'm learning how to play. So I happen to play guitar. So one of the ways that I could respond to that is I could say, oh, I play guitar too. I've been playing since 7th grade. I have a a Carvin guitar. I really like XYZ. I could start talking about all the things that I relate with about that guitar. That's called a shift response. I took what so-and-so said and I shifted the focus away from them and onto me. What I want to do is the exact opposite. A support response is if someone says, yeah, I actually bought a guitar this weekend, it would be me saying, oh, what made you decide to buy the guitar? Who's your favorite guitar player? What bands do you like listening to? What's a song that you're trying to learn right now? It's me supporting what they just shared, keeping the focus on them. So what does this have to, yeah, exactly, Roger. And I hope I'm pronouncing your name right. So what does this have to do with prospecting? What we tend to do in sales is when prospects say, oh yeah, I am focused on reducing cost to serve. Awesome. Well, we can help you with that. I'm really glad I called. Let's set up a meeting to talk about it later. That's me shifting the focus of the conversation from what they said was important to them onto how I can help. It's not time for that yet. What I want to do is support what they said with a couple of good questions to dig in further. Okay. So what we want to do here that's super important is we want to ask a question where we state a common problem that people like them might have, and then follow that up with a question. Okay. And again, I'm going to share a worksheet with you guys before we take off that's got a bunch of examples of this stuff in it. So it's problem plus question. So I'm not going to say, hey, Juan, what's your biggest challenge in reducing cost to serve? Because when I just ask a really open-ended question like that, I don't demonstrate business acumen and credibility, the thing that we talked about at the very beginning of this call. So I'm going to state something that I see and just ask them if they have it. Okay. So I might say, hey, Joseph, with reducing cost to serve being a focus, one of the things that we oftentimes see is that people are creating PDFs and digital assets to help customers answer their own questions. And oftentimes what ends up happening is people go to those assets and they end up calling into the contact center anyways. I'm really curious, how have you dealt with that? Or what's your experience been? Or what digital assets have you tried creating? Or what response to your assets have you had in getting customers trying to use them? So I'm going to have 2 or 3 prepared questions for the priority. And I'm going to connect this call where I'm going to say, hey, here's the priority drop. Let's ask a couple questions around that. That's going to allow me to sync up. And then let me make sure, just for time's sake here, that we go to this next part, okay? So this next part, what we want to do is we want to be the person to say goodbye. All right. So what I'm going to do now is just summarize back what I heard. So let's say the prospect's like, yeah, reducing cost of service is a big focus. Yeah, we haven't had any success with PDFs. Customers keep calling in. They're not able to get their questions answered, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm just going to summarize back what we heard. Yeah, good job, Daniel, putting that into practice. So I'm just going to say, hey, so what I heard today, so this is how you can transition to the close. Hey, so what I heard today is that reducing cost to serve is a really big focus, but one of the challenges that you've had is that you're creating a lot of these digital assets and customers are attempting to use them, but they just kind of call back into the contact center anyways. And it sort of is counterintuitive. And then the get agreement part on the say goodbye section, I'm just going to say, did I miss anything? Or is there anything that you would add? Thank you, Eric. So I'm going to get agreement. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask for the meeting. I like this question. Hey, do you mind if I make a quick suggestion? And the prospects will respond to you in kind of a weird way sometimes when you ask that. They're like, yeah, sure, what's up? Well, hey, everything that you talked about is stuff that, and I'll use a customer story, is very similar to what we heard at companies like Comcast or what other company, where they were dealing with this thing. And one of the ways we helped them was by achieving these outcomes. I know I caught you in the middle of your day here. How about we find some time to chat when I'm not cold calling you in the middle of your day? Do you have your calendar handy? Oh, and we're going to go in, ask for the meeting, and I'm going to do what's called a triple confirmation. So I'm going to confirm time with them again. I'm going to get them to accept the calendar invite on the call. I'm going to confirm the agenda, and I'm going to confirm what I heard them say. So what are we going to be talking about? When are we going to be talking about it? And then getting them to accept the calendar invite on the call. All right, we got 2 or 3 minutes left. I'm going to show you guys and drop into the chat a document, just a little leave behind worksheet. In the meantime, do you have some questions? If you got a question right now in the chat, I can probably answer 2 or 3 of them. Sarah.
Jason, I'll jump in.
Oh, sure.
I have one, but go ahead. If you started answering Sarah's, I have one more for you that I'll show you up.
Yeah, let me just real quick. Okay, can you guys see my...
I have the one from Libby from before, just in case.
Yeah. I don't know if it's allowing me to share my screen. Here's oh, there it is. Okay. This document right here, I'll drop in. It's got this. It's got examples of questions. It's got a talk track template, all of that kind of stuff. So I'll make sure to share that. I don't know how to, I don't think it's letting me drop it into the chat. I'll put it into the private chat. If you guys can like share that link out, that would be great. Okay, so questions. So Sarah said, how long should the call be? 4 to 6 minutes is kind of the sweet spot according to Gong's data, but really probably longer than 3 or 4 minutes is ideal so that you can have a good rapport, get some good challenges, etc. So there's no like ideal time range, but there is a pattern in successful cold calls being somewhere between 4 and 6 minutes. Alex, did you have another question you wanted me to answer, or do you just want me to go through what's in the chat here?
Showing it on screen now. Mm-hmm.
Oh, Libby, should you use that permission-based opener for a gatekeeper? Okay, so gatekeepers, I'm a fan of smart calling by Art Sobczak. Let's not call them gatekeepers, let's call them assistants because their job is to assist. So the way that I would talk to an assistant is to simply ask them for help or to be very assumptive. So if I'm calling in and asking for Libby, I'd say, hey, this is Jason. Can I speak with Libby? Thank you. I'm just going to be super assumptive. I don't need to do a permission-based opener. If they say, well, what's the reason for your call? Hey, I was calling to ask for Libby because, and then I would do priority drop. Typically, people like her are focused on these sort of stuff, and I had some ideas on ways that we might be able to help based on work that we're doing with similar companies. Can you put me through to her? Thank you. All right, and I can do like 2 more questions, and then I got to jump. So Claire, you said if you don't get a customer when cold calling, should you leave a voicemail? Absolutely. When you leave a voicemail, point the voicemail to the email. So instead of saying, call me back, say, hey, I just sent you an email and the subject line is account executives prospecting. I had some ideas on there on how to get your account executives to do more prospecting. This is Jason with Outbound Squad. Like point the voicemail to the email. And Alex, I'm sorry, you're like putting questions up on the screen. I should probably answer the ones you put up on the screen. No, you're good. So Ayla says, how do you memorize your script? I tend to read to avoid forgetting my next line. I would start with a talk track, like you see in the document that I shared with you guys. I like talk tracks because they have talking points instead of word for word scripts on what to say. So I would memorize the structure and the talking points, and I would commit how you introduce the call in the first 30 seconds to memory. Outside of that, I would let it flow a little bit. So to give you an example, like with this talk today, when I was sharing this little document right there, I have another document like that I could open up on my other screen as a cheat sheet in case I forget. But you know what I find is more challenging is to push myself to memorize and really know the material inside and out. So don't memorize the specific words that you're going to say, memorize the talking points and the structure. That's what you want to commit to memory. We got one more.
I don't think we have enough time, unfortunately. If you have a few minutes, just stick around. You can answer in the comments. I think there was like one more question left over there. Thank you so much, Jason. We shared the link already. Thank you for really actionable insights. That was amazing. It was great to have you.
Yeah, you bet. And I just dropped into the chat to my LinkedIn profile. If you guys could help me get that into the comments. Anyone that wants to connect on LinkedIn, let me know. I post content on a daily basis for Outbound. So thank you for having me, Alex. We'll see you, everyone. Thank you for your time. Later.